Let us now try and understand what is the doctrine of fraudulent transfer. So, the name or the term fraudulent transfer in itself tells you that it is a transfer done fraudulently, that is, in bad intention, in bad faith. It is not done with good faith, it is done as a fraud. Okay. So every transfer of the what, let us look at what the section says, that is section 53. So section 53 states that every transfer of immovable property made with an intent to defeat or delay the creditors of the transferor shall be voidable at the option of any creditor so defeated or delayed. That is, let us assume there is Mr. A and there is Mr. B, and Mr. B has loaned rupees 10 lakhs to Mr. A. Now Mr. A obviously has a house, he lives in a own house. What Mr. D does is D, Mr. A does is Mr. A transfers this house or sells this house to Mr. C, right? Mr. C, and he takes away the money and everything. So now B files a court case or a suit in a court saying that I want my loan back and I was going to sell this house and take my money. But what Mr. A did just prior or after receiving the notice of my case, he sold the house. So I filed the case a month ago and Mr. A got the summons कि कोर्ट में आ जाओ, Mr. B ने लोन रिकवरी का एक केस डाला है, and so that he does not have to sell the house or I shouldn't get my loan money, he has sold the house to Mr. C. This is the first scenario. Now, in this transfer will be declared as fraudulent transfer. Okay. Now, what will happen to Mr. C? Now, A will have to give this house to B because he sold it only because he did not want to repay the loan. He did not want to give back his creditor the money. So, he sold the house. So, this transfer will be considered as void. The sale will go. Abhi, Mr. C to came at loss for no fault. How will he know that this was done to with an intention to defraud the creditors? Mr. C paid rupees 8 lakhs. Now Mr. A will have to return these 8 lakhs. And if any loss is made on account of any other things, like there is a unnecessary delay, there is some registration fee, something that Mr. C has to bear, then Mr. A will have to give. So what does this mean? If A is the debtor, B is the creditor, and A just sells the house with an intention that B should not get the house, then the transfer will be held as void. Secondly, what will be C's position? What will be the third person's position? Because he was a transferee who acted in good faith and gave a consideration, it will not impact his rights. It will not put him at a fault and he will get his sale consideration back. These are the two things that we saw. So this was a case where there was only one creditor, right? But assume that Mr. A has many creditors. There's one, there's two, there's three, there's four. Okay. C, D, E. All these people are creditors. So if Mr. B has owned rupees 10 lakhs, Mr. C has loaned rupees 15 lakhs, Mr. D has loaned rupees 5 lakhs, and Mr. E has also loaned 18 lakhs. So there's a lot of debt on Mr. A. Now, Mr. A has a house, But what he does, he transfers this house to Mr. E. So, and he tells Mr. E that, sir, after my transfer to you, to Mr. E, please forgive my loan of 18 lakhs. आप मेरा लोन माफ कर दीजिए, मैं आपको मेरा घर दे देता हूँ. Now Mr. B says that no sir, in the court Mr. B says that this transfer, consider it void because it only happened because we were asking for our loan. It was only happened so that we should not get our money back, to delay us, to defeat us as creditors. But this case will not qualify. Why? Because the transfer was to one creditor only. So if a transfer of a property took place for satisfaction of whole debt of any one creditor out of several creditors, then it does not amount to a fraudulent transfer. Okay, so 3 points only. Simple slide. One, it should be an immovable property transfer with the intent to defeat or delay the creditors, and such a transfer will therefore be voidable at the option of any creditor. Voidable word only says that there is an option. If there is no option, it will be void because there is an option of the creditor. द क्रेडिटर कैन डिसाइड कि जाने देना है, छोड़ो, घर बेच दिया, अब क्या करना है. तो दैट ऑल्सो द क्रेडिटर कैन डू, or the creditor can go to the court and ask for a declaration that the sale be held voidable, that the transfer be held voidable. Where there are several creditors, transfer of a property to any one creditor for satisfaction of whole debt does not amount to fraudulent transfer. Thirdly, nothing shall affect or impair the rights of a transferee in good faith and for consideration. These are the 3 points that cover doctrine of fraudulent transfer.